Hey there. Well, here is a very old knife case. And inside, guess what? A very old, you got it, Swiss Army knife. But this is a Victorinox officer's knife, model 1897. So this is like one of the very first Victorinox Swiss Army knives. This one is a model 1897 because it has the fiber scales and carbon steel blades and tools. We would call this, however, like the Type 1909 because in 1909 Victorinox started making the shield inlay in the fiber scales standard. They actually offered it as an option in as early as 1902 or 1903, but in 1909 they did a couple of things. They started putting the shield on every one of them, and they went to a 3-pin design. Here you can see 3 exposed pins or rivets. Originally there were 4. Victorinox went to stainless steel blades and tools in 1923. Now I've read 1921 as well, but in Victorinox's book they say 1923, so we're going to go with that. And so then we can date this knife somewhere between 1909 and 1923. So it's a very, very old knife, certainly, if not very close, over 100 years old. And this is not my knife. This is a knife that I've been hired to refurbish by a collector and a friend who had bought it directly from Switzerland and had it sent directly to me. Don't even ask. This is not a service that I just offer to anyone, and it's not something I do for any knife. But this collector's presented me with a couple of really special knives recently that how could I say no to? I feel like it's a real honor to be able to work on these historic Victorinox and Wenger knives and really bring a piece of history back to life. So let's take a look at this knife and see, first of all, what I have to deal with. One thing I wanted to show you is that this is an 84 millimeter knife. So here are my calipers here. Turn them on, they're zeroed out. Let's just double check that. They did come in 2 sizes back then, like they do now. And we've got 82.8. So yeah, like right on 83 millimeters. So taking a look at the condition, first of all, the fiber scales are in remarkably good shape. You know, oftentimes with these you're going to see cracks, particularly around the rivets or pins. There's usually a lot of discoloration where the corrosion from the pins has been reacting with the scales. Oftentimes they're warped. So these are in really good shape. This shield is nickel silver. It looks to have some corrosion of some kind, which is unusual, but I'm thinking we might be able to get that out of there because it is nickel silver, not just carbon steel. Same with the pins. You can see some corrosion there, but we should be able to clean that up. So let's go on and look at, well, along the back here, we've got a lot of dirt and gunk and corrosion on the back springs. That's usually not a big problem. The awl looks pretty good. This knife does have brass liners, you can see here. They're very tarnished, but they can usually be cleaned up. We've got some rust or corrosion here. Got quite a bit of rust here. Here's the corkscrew. This knife has no action. This knife has no snap. All the tools need to be forced open, and just about every one of them forced closed. The screwdriver is so hard to get open that I have to use a pick, which I forgot to put here by the table that I film with, so I may not actually even be able to get that out to show it to you. But let's just move on. That one's got a little bit of a click. So let's try to get that open while I'm feeling frisky. No. We'll cut away and come back. Okay, I've got my trusty Rough Rider nail nick pick here. Let's see what we can do. Okay. As you can see on the screwdriver there, no cap lifter. This was before they had bottle caps in wide use, and certainly well before they introduced the cap lifter on the screwdriver. And let's just leave some of these open. We'll be able to look down inside. Here's the can opener. You know, it's the first style can opener. It's also heavily stained and corroded. This model has scissors. They introduced scissors and saws on these officers' knives in 1902 or 1903, back when they made that shield optional. And they also introduced tweezers and toothpicks, and the toothpicks back then were ivory. I would love to find one of those. So yeah, these are rusted shut. I noticed the spring is really interesting. It's like a big, thick piece of metal. It's not like a little piece of spring steel like you see. It's much thicker. It's not black. So anyway, screw, of course, it's rusted shut. Let's see what we can do here. Yeah, they pull open. They're just, they got quite a bit of rust. Well, that's good news, because at first I didn't think they were going to open. So that can be cleaned up. We might be able to get some action back in that. And then here's the small blade. And you know, it's chipped and sharpened away, heavily scratched and stained. But certainly it can be improved upon. And again, you just got to push all this stuff open and closed. And here's the main blade. Now the main blade is it's really in poor shape. It's got, you know, several nicks. It's got a curve in here. It's got a lot of nicks. Then the tip is bad. But those nicks, you know, I should be able to remove those nicks and put a better point on that knife. This side is really cruddy looking. It's got a lot of rust. You know, this is carbon steel, so when I get it cleaned up, I can get rid of the rust, but usually there's pitting and staining left, and it's usually black. There's certain things you can try to clean it with and certain techniques, but it's never going to shine like stainless steel. It's going to have a much duller appearance, and you know, it's going to have signs of scarring from the corrosion, but it certainly can be made to look better than its current state, which is pretty bad. So that's probably the worst thing on the knife right there. Watch me try to open this. Now I can say that this knife is sound. It's you know, particularly the scales, but everything is here. Nothing is broken. Nothing is missing. Nothing is you know, extremely loose. But I can't say that nothing is not loose. I can't say everything's tight, because until I get that action freed up a little bit, I don't know what's going to, you know, lock up firmly or not. And now we can look down inside, and it's actually not too bad inside. There's not a bunch of rust down in there on those back springs. There is, however, you know, a lot of staining and tarnish on the brass liners. I'll be able to get some of that up. Okay. So I've got my work to do for sure. I'll get busy, and we'll come back and look at the results. Oh, before I go, I wanted to talk about the tag stamp. Here you can see the tag stamp. It reads Armee Suisse, and you'll notice that those letters are slanted. Actually, that whole stamp is a little crooked on this knife, but the Swiss cross to the left, and then Armee Suisse with slanted letters. That's a tag stamp Victorinox used from all the way back approximately 1891 up till 1935. It's one of the very first tag stamps they used on these knives, along with Elsener Swiss and Victoria. And it's not to be confused with another very similar tag stamp that reads Armee Suisse with block letters, but the letters are straight up and down, and that ran from 1931 to 1951. 1935 to 1951. Okay, well, I've decided to make this video in two parts. So please stay tuned for part 2, where I'll show you the restoration results. And in the meantime, thanks for watching, and have fun collecting.